Hello, beautiful friends. I am so glad to be here. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. It feels really weird to say that. If you're new here, then welcome. If you're not new here, you probably feel like you're new here because it has been so long since I posted a video. But I'm really excited to be kind of hopping back into this space. I have no idea what it's gonna look like. You know, I have no expectations, but what I do know is that I have missed this space so much. This community has been like such a kindness from God in my life, and it has brought me so much joy. I love creating videos. It's been such a fun creative space for me, and I have missed that a lot. I kind of had like a back and forth argument with myself going back probably 4 or 5 months ago about wanting to come back to this space but just not knowing what that would look like. But I have just kind of thrown all abandon to the wind, and I decided that I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna do it because I love it. It's such a fun hobby for me. There's no expectations here. We're gonna let it be a fun outlet, a fun space for us to get together and talk about books, because gosh, I have missed that so much. Also to talk about anything, because I'm just a chatty Cathy. Today's the start of a vlog. I don't really know what we're gonna do in this vlog. I have no plans. I have nothing fun like up my sleeve, but we don't need party tricks to be together, you know? We're just friends like that, and we can just chill. So that's what we're gonna do. I am gonna give a little bit of a life update because I know so many of my wonderful friends on here probably are curious about my health. If you are new here, this is like very random to you, but if you go back, probably not that many videos because it was so long ago on my channel. I have a little testimony about a really hard health season that I went through. It's actually been a few years ago now, which is bonkers to me to think about that it's been that long. You can go back and get like a full kind of report about what happened, how I got there, all those things. Also what the Lord did in my life during that time. It's such a testimony, and it's still just like one of my favorite times with him, which is so interesting to say. I just think suffering has a way of drawing us into intimacy with Jesus in a way so unique to itself, which is ironic because we live in a society where we will do anything to avoid suffering, like specifically in the West, specifically in America. We are a culture of like avoiding being uncomfortable, avoiding suffering at all costs. Yeah, so anyways, there's a little bit of a testimony in there about how suffering is a unique kind of intimacy. So anyways, but what I was gonna say is I want to do like a little health update because I know some of you are probably curious if you've been around since then. So praise the Lord that my surgery has been pretty much completely successful. I very rarely have any kind of setbacks. I will have some issues during major storms, which we do live in Oklahoma, so those happen fairly often, specifically through the spring and like early summer, but thankfully they've been completely manageable. All the other crazy symptoms with my body have completely gone away. So overall, my health is doing so well, and I'm extremely grateful. I am extremely grateful. You will never know how grateful I am to go from where I was at to now. It's just actually kind of crazy for me to think about, to like reminisce on where I was in the midst, like in the dead center of that health scare, to where I am now. It's kind of just crazy and amazing, and the Lord works miracles, and he definitely worked a miracle on my behalf, and I'm so thankful. So anyways, just wanted to get that out of the way because I know a lot of you guys have asked me like on Instagram and stuff like that how I'm doing, so that is a health update. You're probably like, why are you just sitting in a parking lot? I am waiting. I'm waiting on my dog to get groomed. She doesn't take very long. You know, her body is like this big, So she doesn't take very long to shampoo and cut. There's a Starbucks nearby. By the by, I have a new Starbucks order and I shared it on Instagram, so you may have already seen it, but it is a venti iced brown sugar shaken espresso, which has always been a hit with me. But I've been adding pistachio cold foam and it is delightful, friends. It is delightful. It is so yummy. That's what we're doing. That's why I'm just sitting in a random parking lot. Let's talk about what I've been reading lately. I want to do a video soon talking about some of the hits that I've had since I haven't been on here, because I want to gush about books that I love. But currently I am reading Till We Have Faces. I don't have my physical book here, but I've been reading Till We Have Faces by C.S. Lewis, and it's one of his lesser known works. So fun fact about this book, C.S. Lewis thought it was the best thing he'd ever written, and I was gonna say I'm inclined to agree. I'm actually hesitant to agree because I love everything he's written so much, and I just think that this is very different than what he has ever written, and for that it is incredible. I am absolutely loving it though, and I do see why he would say that about this book. Like I said, it's just hard for me to say that because so many of his books are like favorites for me, you know, and he is just a favorite for me. So it's kind of hard for me to say that, but if he said it, who am I to argue, you know? It is a Greek mythology retelling, which has been very interesting because I honestly have not read much. I have not read much Greek mythology other than what was required like in high school, which I am really thankful because the more people I talk to, I had really good English teachers that like actually required us to read. Apparently that's not soups common anymore. Very thankful for that, but we did have a good chunk of time, I felt like, that we spent on Greek mythology, but there's a lot of the myths that I've never read or that I don't really know a whole lot about, and this is actually one of them, which is interesting because it's about Cupid and Psyche, but it's not. It's not. Okay, it's a retelling from Psyche's older sister's point of view. Her name is Oral. I think that's how I've been saying it in my head. That's probably not how you say it, but or Oriole or Oral. Anyways, you let me know if you know how to say it. It's from her perspective and it has been so good. I haven't had just a ton of time to sit down and read it. I've been reading numerous things at one time, shocker. But those things have taken precedence just because I had audiobooks for them, and this one I'm wanting to like read solely with my eyeballs so that I can highlight and take notes and dissect it a little bit more. Man, it is so good. So you're following Oral or whatever we're gonna call her. We can call her O. I don't know. You're following Oral, and she is, like I said, Psyche's older sister and the daughter of a king, and her dad is extremely verbally abusive. He is misogynistic. He's very difficult to read because you just honestly want to punch him in the face, but he serves his purpose for the story. Oral and her sisters, she has two sisters, and they are kind of raised by this Greek slave that the king like brings in for them, and he becomes like a mentor to Oral and in a lot of ways a best friend. But whenever Psyche is born, if you don't know, Psyche was absolutely beautiful. She was like just the most gorgeous creature, is very sweet and is very kind, and at least in this book, like I said, if any of this is like a retelling, it is a retelling. Oral becomes very attached to her younger sister. She becomes very, thanks God for the lighting. I don't know if you guys noticed the lighting change, but the sun is right on me now and I'm living for it. All the vitamin D. But she has become kind of possessive of her younger sister, really loves her sister and is protective of her. And the land goes through like a famine, and they're having all of these like diseases creep in. The crops aren't reaping a harvest, but the priest of their god in this region, right, remember, polytheistic, so that's been really interesting about this book, but the god of their community, there's a priest for that god that comes to the king and essentially says, so the only way to satisfy the gods is a sacrifice to these gods, and it has to be a particular person. It wasn't just anybody. You couldn't just offer up anybody. And the priest tells the king that he knows that it's nobody in town, and he knows that it's somebody within the king's court. It's with someone within the king's home. And then he proceeds to tell him it's someone within his family. And the king immediately thinks, it's myself. I'm gonna have to give up myself for my kingdom. That's not the case. It does end up being Psyche. Psyche ends up being the one who is supposed to be sacrificed. He is relieved. He's relieved that his own daughter takes the hit, if you will, for his kingdom. He's just an awful king. Awful king. And a terrible father. Oral obviously is really upset about this, and she tries to offer herself. She honestly has this most distressing moment with the priest and her father essentially protesting that Psyche be the one that is offered up, and they're pretty much like, we don't have a choice, this is what it is, and they take her away. And that's kind of where I am. She's just kind of woken up from being beaten because she was protesting, and Psyche has already been taken to the mountain and offered up to the gods. So that is kind of where we're at. I will keep you guys updated, but I'm really loving it. Oral is really wrestling with hatred of these gods, and there's so many layers to her hatred. That's actually how the book begins, is her expressing her hatred for the gods, and this is even before Psyche's sacrifice. So yeah, it's been very interesting to kind of dissect. I will have like more well-formed thoughts at the end, so I'm very excited to finish it. That was a very long intro, okay, but it's been a minute. I haven't gotten to talk to y'all, so it is what it is. But yeah, I'm so happy to be back, guys. I love y'all. Let's do this. First of all, we are obviously not at the house. We are not in my home. This is a hotel room. My husband and I had to come to Vegas for a business conference, but I could not wait. I could not wait to talk to you guys about this book. So I finished this morning, and wow, I am obsessed with it. I completely understand now why C.S. Lewis says that this is his best work. I think he might be right. I love this so much. It is obviously so different from anything else that he's written, but just really incredible. So let's dive in. As I was editing the first clip of this vlog, two thoughts came to mind, okay? One of them is that Caitlin was uncaffeinated. And as I talked about the synopsis for this book, I realized just how non-cohesive my explanation really was. And I could just tell that I had not had my coffee yet. So we are gonna kind of back up and give a little bit better of a synopsis for this first. But my second thought was that it's been a minute since I've sat in front of a camera. And so just bear with me as I get used to filming again and talking about books again. the way that one does in a video like this, I can remember when I first started YouTube, it really took me a minute to kind of formulate how I wanted to talk about books, and I kind of am back at square one. So just bear with me, we will get there. But yeah, your girl was editing that and I was like, you're not really giving the best details, honey. So let's start over. This book is a retelling of Cupid and Psyche's story, but not really, okay? This book is all about Orwell, which I'm pretty sure I looked up. That's how at least the narrator of this book says it. So that's how I am gonna say it in the rest of this video. But this book is really more about her, okay? So Cupid and Psyche's story is in the background. Cupid isn't even really talked about in this book. It is mainly Orwell and Psyche's relationship kind of at the forefront, but really not even that. It is Orwell's complaint against the gods. So this book is split into two different books. Actually, the majority of the novel is the first book. The first book is really just Orwell's written complaint to the gods, but little does she know, it's actually more of just a character analysis of who she is, both for the reader and eventually for herself. I am gonna struggle really hard to talk about this book with no spoilers, but I wanna gush about it. So if you want to go into this book with knowing just that, just kind of the rough premise of what this is about, then you might stop now, because what I gave in the first half and kind of what I just said is about all I'm gonna be able to say without kind of getting into spoiler territory. So here's your warning. If you want spoiler free, end this here. Love ya, no hard feelings. See you in the next one. But if you want to know more in-depth thoughts, then stick around. I am gonna still try to like not give everything away, but there's just so much in this book that I want to talk about theme-wise that some of them are gonna kind of give some things away. So the first half is Orwell's complaint against the gods about how they are unkind, they are distant, they hide themselves from their people, they seem to be completely unsatisfied at all times, greedy, if you will. As I said in the first half, Orwell is one of 3 daughters to a king who is really a terrible person, okay? He's really, really awful. But one thing, just a side note, that was interesting was as you kind of read through the novel, you realize that Orwell is really not that likable either. And that you start out kind of thinking, oh, I'm gonna be rooting for this person. And you end up thinking, no, I'm absolutely not rooting for this person. And then you kind of end the novel being like, am I this person? Which is the beauty of C.S. Lewis's writing this, just genius. But it was interesting to kind of compare her relationship with her father, who she ends up becoming as an elderly woman. Just really fascinating, kind of got my wheels turning about how our parents affect us and how common it is that people actually end up like their parents, good, bad, or indifferent. Like there obviously are patterns that get broken all the time by the grace of God, but even surface level silly things, right? Like we all to some degree end up being our parents. And I don't know, just that aspect between her and her dad really fascinated me. And that's like such a side subplot. I guess that relationship is really influential for Orwell, but it's not talked about like on page a whole lot. And so the fact that even like a side relationship like that got my mind working so much and just really loving to like dive into deeper themes should tell you how much I love this book. Okay, I'm gonna put this down because I don't wanna hold it up the whole time. But so you have Orwell and her 2 sisters. Orwell is not physically attractive, okay? Like that is a very big point in this book, that she's ugly. Like that is the word used in the book, so that's the word I'm gonna use, but she is ugly. And Psyche, her sister, is absolutely beautiful, like the most gorgeous creature, so gorgeous that she actually begins to be worshipped as a goddess by the people of Glome, which is their nation, their tribe, their territory, whatever you want to call it in ancient times. But Glome is made up of their people, and the people of Glome start to worship Psyche because she's so beautiful. And I believe that this is true to the original myth. So anybody who has read that, I'm very interested to actually go read the original myth, because obviously that is what inspired C.S. Lewis to go this route, which, fun fact, actually his wife was a huge reason why he ended up writing this, because she actually really inspired him to look at the myth in a very different light. And I just love that. I love his relationship with his wife so much. And so the fact that she was kind of a huge inspiration for this book just makes me love her even more. Psyche is being worshipped, and that is upsetting Ungit, which is the god of gloom, the god that they worship. So out of jealousy, Ungit, this god, demands a sacrifice. As I talked about in the first clip, the priest of Ungit comes to the king's household and says Psyche must be sacrificed to the gods. Orwal loves Psyche so much, but it is a possessive love. It is a really jealous and controlling love. And when Psyche is sacrificed on the mountain, Orwal ends up making a journey to the top of the mountain, which mountains in scripture are fascinating. I don't know, there's just so many different rabbit holes, because obviously this is not a biblical story, right? He's not retelling a biblical story, it is a myth, but I don't know, there's just so many things. I'm gonna try to keep my thoughts succinct. So she journeys up the mountain to essentially gather Psyche's bones and to give her a proper goodbye, a proper burial. And when she gets up there, she sees that Psyche is actually alive and well and is extremely happy and thriving. Enter one of my favorite scenes in the entire book, okay? Psyche is flourishing and she lives in this palace. And she is surrounded by beauty, and she is surrounded by good wine and grapefruit. And she is so excited to tell her sister about this, about what she's found and how kind her new master is, her bridegroom, which cue tears, okay? Because I have been thinking so much this year in 2026 about Christ being the bridegroom of the church, but not just the bridegroom of the church, the bridegroom of Caitlin. He is my bridegroom. Not at all to separate myself from the church, from the body, but in my life I have had seasons where I've really struggled to grasp, not that you can ever grasp it. Spoiler alert, you can't ever grasp it, but just to take my God personally, that he is not only for his church, he is for me, he is for Caitlin. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. And that he is my father, he is my savior. I could name all the ways that he is those things, but it wasn't until I really went on a journey with him that I started asking him to let it be known to me personally how you feel, how you delight in me. There's a verse in Zephaniah 3:17 that talks about how he sings over us. He is so delighted by us that he sings over us. And so anyways, that's a side tangent, but Psyche is so enthralled and just overjoyed, so content and in love with her bridegroom. And she's bringing wine for Orwal to drink and bringing her the fruit from the trees. And the whole time, Orwal can't see it, right? And at this point, she's not wearing a veil, but later on in the story, she ends up wearing a veil all the time to try to hide her ugliness, to try to hide her face. And the scene got me thinking about how difficult it can be to explain to people, non-believers for sure. It's very difficult to describe to them what it's like living in the presence of your king, of your bridegroom, what that's like, and the joy and the love and the freedom. Oh my gosh, the freedom. That is part of what she talks to Orwal about too, is just the freedom that she feels. And it's a whole thing. So that scene is one of my favorites. And after Orwal cannot see it, she thinks that her sister has gone completely mad, and she descends the mountain, goes back home, and she begins to think it would be better if I killed my sister than to let her go on in this badness. This is what she's telling herself. I love my sister so much, I would rather kill her than let her to live in this madness. She doesn't believe that her bridegroom is a god. She doesn't believe that she is actually married to the God that she says that she is. I'm not going to dissect every single second of this book, even though I really wish I could. Okay, I've already been talking for too long, and I feel like none of my thoughts are really making a ton of sense. Once she decides to do that, there is a scene between her and Psyche that I'm not going to get too much into because I want you to read this book to see how this all plays out, even though I'm definitely giving you spoilers. But hopefully they're spoilers that are making you want to go and read this book. Okay, that's my hope in giving these spoilers, is that these spoilers are worth you saying, I have got to go read that book. But after the scene with Psyche, when Orwell comes back down the mountain, her dad is really, really sick and he essentially has lost his mind. And so she has to take over as queen, and she full-fledged throws herself into it. She feels like, this is how I get away from myself. She even uses phrases like, I'm gonna butcher it, but essentially, if I can bury myself, if I can make myself enough into queen, then Orwell will cease to exist. And so her entire identity gets put into being queen and these accomplishments, and her accomplishments almost being distractions from looking herself in the mirror and removing the veil from her face and seeing who she is and making her identity those accomplishments, instead of being willing and humble enough to bear before herself who she actually is. And all the while thinking that her perspective is the right perspective. The way that she is viewing her story is justified, and that she is justified in her anger against the gods. And then book 2, she takes her scroll, her complaint against the gods, and she goes to the judges of the gods to give this complaint. And I'm not gonna say any more than that because the ending is so good. Okay, it's so good. I know I just said so much about that book. But like I said, I hope that like my love for this book is radiating through the screen to you, okay? And that you feel an urge to pick this up. I will say, like, it is not a difficult read. It is gonna require you to think deeply about things, but also like, that's really good for your brain. So let's do it, okay? Let's read this book, think deeply about it, think about the Lord as you're reading it, because even though it is obviously like a polytheistic Greek mythology retelling, C.S. Lewis somehow makes it so about humanity and the way that we bear ourselves in front of God. And there's so many layers to this, both just from a humanity perspective, a spiritual perspective, a relational perspective. I just cannot tell you enough. I cannot tell you enough how much I want you to read this book. Okay, I'm done, okay? Hopefully I have convinced you. If I have convinced you, please let me know down below because I am going to end this vlog here. I also, really fast, because I've been talking too long, I'm going to tell you that I did also read, I know I showed you in an earlier clip, I listened to the first Emma M. Lyon, The Unselected Journals books, and I listened to the first one and it was absolutely delightful. Okay, it's only a 3-hour audiobook. It's more like a novella. I don't know, I didn't have the physical book, so I don't know how many pages it is, but very short and extremely delightful. I cannot wait to continue on in that series. I just know that it's gonna be like a cup of tea every single time I pick one up, and I'm very much looking forward to that. So, okay, those are your reviews. I am so glad to be back. Thank you for watching through this chaos that was this vlog and watching me like regain my footing in this space. I appreciate you guys so much. I am so happy to be here. I love all of you. And until next time, read good books. Okay.